Ladies and gentlemen, the OnePlus Open is here, and there is a lot you can do with this device. So in this video, we're going to spend about 20 plus minutes going over a whole bunch of tips and tricks for this device. Now this is going to kind of run the gamut from people who are brand new to Android devices. Some of these things you're going to say, I know this already. Some other ones might be a bit more in depth. So stick around because you may run into some things that you didn't actually know. So I think it makes a ton of sense to start off with multitasking on this video because this thing does a lot of things that are very, very different from what you may be used to. So let's start off by just simply opening up an application. Let's also turn down the volume so that we don't run into any problems there. Now, we want to open up a second application. The simplest way to do this is by using the taskbar down below. Now, you can see I have actually made folders in my taskbar. This is something I've been doing since the Pixel Fold, and it just gives me a few quicker options than having to go into the app drawer itself. But I'll show you how this works. You can grab an application from this bar. Any of these will work, or you can grab one from your app drawer, which is what we're going to do. We're just going to grab the Play Store. And if you long press and drag it, you can see you can place it on either side, just like that. And then you're going to have both of these applications open at the same time. But there's actually another way to get into this. Let's do a 2-finger swipe on the screen, and it's actually going to part like the Red Seas, and it's going to show you your home screen. From there, you can launch any application you want, even from a widget. This is very, very cool and very, very useful. But let's go a step further. Let's say we want a third app open. Unlike on Samsung devices, where it's going to put that third app down here in a little square, it's going to do something really, really unique. We'll just grab Threads and we'll drag it up. And what you see here is that we have all 3 applications open, but we have them in this sort of side-by-side thing. Threads, Overdrop, and then there is YouTube. And let's say you want to take YouTube and make this bigger. Let's tap up there. Full screen is going to make it the only app on the screen. It's going to basically get rid of these other 2. Switch app is going to let you switch it with another app. Pretty simple. But expand is very, very cool because what you can see now is that this application is now running right here in a basically full screen scenario. But I can tap right there and I can go right back up to the other applications that I was using. So you can very, very quickly and very, very smoothly move between these open applications. Let's go ahead and close YouTube, and then we'll go ahead and we will close Overdrop, and we have only Threads now running. Let's talk about floating windows because you can do that as well. Let's swipe up and hold. You can see now Release, that is now operating in a floating window. What does that mean? Well, it means I can be doing whatever else I want to be doing, and that application will just sort of live there, and it can actually be resized, moved wherever you want it to be, and it will just kind of hang out there in the corner. If you want to get rid of it, you're just going to tap it, and then you can click on the little X in the top right-hand corner. If you swipe up and hold, you're going to get your Recents menu, and from here you can also launch your floating window or your split screening. Either way you want to go is going to work exactly the same. And if I launch another application, there you go, we're back into split screening again. Something a lot of people might not realize is a thing is you can actually swipe along the bottom of the screen to move between your recent used apps as well. Overall, there are just a ton of options to multitask on the OnePlus Open, and they are quite unique. Let's take a second and look at your launcher because there are some things that can be done here as well. Let's long press on it, and this is going to get you into your sort of editing mode. The first thing I want to point out is that you can very quickly delete widgets from this screen. That little minus in the red circle will get rid of things. You can also long press and move them around, move them from screen to screen. It's a really nice way to edit things. And in fact, if I had some applications open, I can do this actually in this folder. You can see I can tick multiple of these, move them around together. How cool is that? Or delete them all together, remove them from the home screen. Really, really cool. From this screen, you can also edit your wallpaper, which you can see it does have several that are built in. You can go into icons, change the shape of the icons if something looks better to you, customize that. You can actually get rid of the app names if you want a cleaner look. If you go back up here to custom, you can actually see some other options as well, like the ability to adopt system colors. Now, unfortunately, this is something that just doesn't work with all apps. You'll see a lot of them will change, but not all of them do, which is the same as it is on pretty much every other phone where this sort of thing is very hit or miss. You can also click on widgets, and that is how you're going to drag any of the widgets that you might use onto your screen. You can see that I have several on mine. That's how you access that. Let's jump into more, and this is going to show us some home screen settings. So let's go up top. Home screen mode, drawer mode, or standard mode. So standard mode is going to force you to have, like on an iPhone, all of your apps just on your screen. Drawer mode is the default setting. That's the one that basically allows you to swipe up and get into an app drawer. So that's the one I think most people are going to want to leave it on. I would also recommend turning off add apps to the home screen here. That is super annoying when you're setting up your device. And then show app suggestions will actually put a row of apps at the top that are suggested apps. Most of these are fairly self-explanatory. Icon autofill is another iPhone thing, so rather than having your apps placed wherever you want them, it's going to put them at the very top of the screen and in order. Leave that turned off because that's stupid. Double tap to lock makes sense. Swipe down on home screen. You want that to be your notification drawer or your shelf. So let's change it over to shelf and I'll show you what we mean. If I swipe down, welcome to shelf, convenient services and quality content. Basically what this is it's sort of like a widgets panel. I don't imagine too many people are going to want to use that. I wish that we had more options here to do other things, but I'm going to leave it on notification drawer. Raise to wake, double tap to wake, or turn off screen. We're going to turn that one on. And then your recent tasks manager down here is pretty interesting. So this will allow you to lock specific apps, and by default it's locking these. We're going to turn that off. What does that mean? It means that when you do this and you hit clear or close all, I should say, those were apps that it was never going to close. Obviously, those are not ones I want to choose. If you want to pick something, though, and toggle that box so that that app only closes, if you absolutely want it to close, you can do that here. Sort of in the same general idea of what we were just now looking at. Let's go into our settings. Let's go into wallpapers and style. There's a few things here that we haven't touched on. Let's go into always on display. So what this is, if I turn off my display, you're going to see it in a moment, that is my always on display. And we can customize this here. So first off, let's look at these recent too. So you can change it to different things. You can see what that's going to look like there. There's different little personalized graphics that you're going to show, like your emoji if you want to set that up, your Bitmoji if you want to do that. And then there's some other system ones here. I like this custom pattern one. Basically, you draw a little bit and it came up with this pattern for me. And that's what I ended up having. Let's go into more display settings and we can look at what it's actually going to show. So time, date, battery, notifications, you can turn all these things off or on. You can't do as much on this customization as on some other devices, but I still think you can do a decent amount and it does look pretty good. If we scroll down from here, let's go into colors. So this thing is gonna actually give you the option to pick some different colors for your user interface or to use your wallpaper to give you a selection of colors as well. This is Material U. Let's change to that one and you can see what we're talking about. It's going to grab, again, colors from the wallpaper or colors you choose to sort of further theme the device. Under quick settings, you can change the icon shape of those icons. You can also swipe down and click right here and edit your tiles, change what you want to have in those little quick settings. Like for me, the multi-screen connect, don't need that. Eye comfort, don't need that. We could go on and on. You can add things, subtract things, drag them around, customize that to your heart's content. What about edge lighting? What this is going to do is when you're on your always on display and a notification comes in, it's going to light up the edge of the screen to let you know that something has come in. In the main screen section underneath taskbar, there are some toggles you can use here. Do you want the app library? Do you want your recent files to be there? You can turn these things off and on, as well as the recent apps and suggested apps down in that corner. Let's actually take a second and we'll look at that recent files option. Let's go into my text messaging and we're going to look at this text with my wife. Let's pull this up and we're going to grab this photo of Rutherford and we're going to drag it straight down and there it is. I can send that to her just like that. Very, very cool. Here's when you want to look at screen switching. So the ability to basically control when an application that's running on the tablet display switches and continues over to that cover display. You can have this be on all the time. You can have it just lock the phone when you close it, or by default, and this is the best one, swipe up to continue using. Let me demonstrate this. So when I close the device, this should pop up. Swipe up to continue using, and boom, there you are. You are continuing whatever it was you were doing. That is a really, really nice feature that I wish every foldable had. Under display size, if you have an application that just does not work well stretched out, you can actually go in and change how this app looks. Something like Instagram used to be a good option for this, but they actually have a tablet layout now. But maybe there's an app that you know of. Like, let's actually look at something like Wise, which might not look the best on a screen like this because it's just not meant for this size screen. So we can go in here, go back to main screen, display size. Let's scroll all the way down to Wise. And let's do 4:3 and let's change that. So now when we go back into Wise, we have letterboxing that actually might make the app run or perform, the UI, I should say, perform a little bit better. Let's click on that icon there. And let's restart it in full screen. Under display and brightness, by default, this thing does come in light mode. If you're like me and you prefer dark mode, that is where you're going to be changing that. Screen color mode is an interesting one. Natural, Pro, or Vivid. Maybe you're a Samsung user and you want those colors to pop like you're used to. That's great. Pro is using the D65 color temperature, which basically means it should be very, very accurate. Natural is where they have recommended. You can also change the color temperature, cool, default, and it's not just like set places either. You can really dial that in, which is kind of surprising. We also have nature tone display, which should automatically adjust the color temperature in response to ambient light. And you can see here that it got quite a bit warmer when I turned that on. Personally, I don't like that, but it might be useful to you. Image sharpener is going to actually try to increase the detail of low quality images and videos. And then video color boost is something I kind of like. I like those vibrant colors. You might want to turn that on as well. Adaptive sleep is something very similar to what I believe Samsung might have introduced. Basically what this is going to do is it's going to try to watch you with the camera, and as long as it sees that you're looking at the screen, it should leave it on. If you want to try and save a little bit of battery life under display and brightness, you can also change the screen refresh rate. Currently, and by default, it's on auto select, and it's probably where you want to keep it because it's going to ramp that refresh rate up to give you nice smooth scrolling. But when the device is sort of idle, it should more or less ramp it down to save battery life. But you can also turn it on to 120 full time or drop it down to 60 hertz to save battery. If you go to notification and status bar and scroll down, you can very quickly turn off or on notifications for different applications. And it's actually going to show you in order of who has sent a notification most recently. So if there's something that's bugging you, you can quickly turn that off there. You can also customize notifications by location. So if there's a particular app you don't want to be showing notifications on your lock screen, you can do that there. How about ones you don't want to pop up and show a banner and interrupt you? Do that there as well. And lastly, app icons. So basically on your home screen, you're going to have a little dot that shows you the number of notifications, just a dot or nothing if you want to go that route as well. Under apps, we do have an app cloner that will allow you to take any of these, for whatever reason, meta apps and clone them. And you can see here, it runs independently of the original app. I wish you could do this on other applications besides just these meta apps, but that is the case. Under auto launch, these are applications that should launch on boot and will launch in the background. And there's some of these that we just absolutely do not need. So eBay, Facebook, Instagram, Meet, Keep, Messenger, Notes, Telegram, Twitter. Keep an eye on that. This is a way you can kind of shut some things down that you definitely do not need going in the background. We'll leave the clock on just for alarms and things like that. If you need to add fingerprints or a face unlock, things like that, that's under security and privacy, you're going to do device unlock and then pick one of these. You'll enter your PIN and you can set that up from there. I forgot to mention this one. If you go into face unlock, you're going to want to turn on enter home screen after unlocking. Why? Because what it does is that it makes it so that when the face unlock triggers and it sees you, you don't have to swipe up or anything. Under battery, there are some potentially interesting things. First off, you can see what's been using your battery. You can turn on power saving mode, but under more settings, there is a high performance mode. You probably don't need this because this device is already super fast, but if you want to go absolutely buck wild, you can turn that on. Sleep standby optimization consumes less power and sends fewer notifications when you are asleep. You can turn that off or on there as well. Optimize battery use. You can set this per application. This is basically just this battery optimization that rolled out in Android a while back. Under special features, guys, there are so many things to go over in this device. It's gonna be a really long video. We're going to ignore quick return because the supported apps are effectively nothing. Just ignore that for now, unless there's an app that's in there. Maybe you can play with it. I'm just gonna move on. Smart sidebar. This is basically the same thing that Samsung has. You can swipe over and get to a selection of apps or recent files, just like you have in the taskbar down here. Personally, I think that this is a little bit redundant because we already sort of have that. But there are some settings there like do not hide or hide automatically. Maybe that's something that you want to use. You can also, I believe, grab this handle and then move it around so that you can have it in a more easily reachable place. I'm gonna leave that turned off because again, I just think it's a little bit redundant. Under additional settings, maybe you don't want to use gestures, maybe you want to use buttons. Well, you can have the buttons down here. You can customize them to your heart's content. Let's go back into that. You can change the order of them, the location of them, left or right. Personally, I think gestures are the way to go. I did not mean to actually hit the button to learn them. I'm good, I know them already. You can have that gesture bar be hidden or to appear depending on your preference. This is a cool one. Switch to previous app. So I showed you this one, right? But what about doing this? What about swiping in and holding? You saw where that changed. Boom, now it's back to settings. That is a pretty cool one as well. If we jump back up to Wi-Fi and we click on the three dots up here and then go into more settings, there's one I think you should probably turn on here as well. Wi-Fi status display. Let's turn on Wi-Fi version number. As you can see now up here at the top, you can see that my Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi 6. That's going to give you some indication about the quality, the speed of that Wi-Fi connection. Something that they didn't really advertise is the fact that this thing does have an IR blaster. What does this mean? It means you can actually program this thing to be able to control your television. Anything that has an IR input, you can actually find it, look it up, and program it. Kind of crazy to see that on a device like this, but I'm kind of happy that it's there. They do also have a game app. If you launch an application with this, what you should have here is this game mode where instead of swiping down in the middle and getting your sort of notification bar, you can swipe down on a corner, I believe. There you go. Let's try that again. And you're going to get this pop-up, which is going to show you your FPS. You can change the mode that you're in, change the brightness, screenshot, call blocker, network. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do from this little bar. There's even a voice changer in there. So lots of options for that. And I think that's how you get into it. I think you swipe down from the top. Seems like it's a little bit of a weird gesture because you're going to be controlling the game doing that as well. Yep, that's how you do it. Swipe down from the upper left or upper right hand corner. I saw a little icon right there. You can kind of see where you're meant to be doing it as. So just kind of swipe down from right there. It's a little bit wonky because again, it changes where you're looking in the game potentially, but it should pop up. So obviously this is a device that some people might have difficulty reaching all the way at the top of, just like with the Z Fold devices. But if you go into, once again, your settings and then additional settings, there is an option for a one-handed mode. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to swipe down at the bottom, access the top of the screen, and then touch up there to send it back. That might come in handy for some of us. And in the same category as the one-handed mode, if we go into gestures and motions, there are a couple of cool things here as well. Swipe down with 3 fingers to take a screenshot. That's a pretty cool one. But what about screen off gestures? So we have double tap to wake or turn off the screen. So if we're here, we can wake the screen and then we can put it back to sleep, which is pretty useful. But how about these other things? Draw an O to open the camera, draw a V to turn on the flashlight. And this, I believe, only works on the cover display. So let's draw that O, and we jump straight into the camera. That's very cool. Let's draw that V, and the flashlight just came on, draw it again, and it goes off. And as you can see, you can actually add a couple of other things in here. Like you can do a draw of an upside down V, and you can set it to open a particular app. It's actually customizable. I think this stuff is very, very cool about music control. Draw 2 lines straight down to pause or resume tracks. This is one of these sort of hidden features a lot of people aren't going to know about, but they're really, really useful. If you jump into the built-in Photos app, typically I don't have a lot of reason to use the built-in photo apps on phones like this because Google Photos is very good, but there are actually a couple of things worth looking at on this one. Let's go ahead and jump into this photo. We're going to click on the edit button, and maybe the coolest one to me is called AI Palettes. If you click on it, there are a couple that are built in, Mars, Gothic, and Red Orange. What they do is they sort of apply this overlay, but it appears to almost be more than just a filter. And what's cool is you can actually click on the plus button and throw one of your own photos in there to sort of be a palette. So perhaps you can find a photo that you really like and that it ends up, I guess you can't zoom on the screen, that you like, and you can actually add it here and kind of make your own custom filters. And at the end of it, the result's pretty good. They also have their own version of Magic Eraser in here. I'm just gonna be honest with you, it's not great. We'll zoom in and we'll try and get rid of the Skechers logo here. We're just gonna kind of do that. You can see, I mean, it's not the best. Let's jump into the camera application because there are some things that you're gonna wanna potentially do in there as well. So the first one I wanted to do is go to video, click on this right here and change that from 1080p to 4K. By default, that was on 1080p. You're gonna definitely wanna change that. Let's go back to photo. Let's click that and let's go, auto HDR should be left on. Let's go into settings. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the shutter sound. We can turn that off there. Although I think when the notification or alert slider, I should say, I think when it's on vibrate, I think that's turned off anyways, but you can do what you want to do there. Mirror selfies, should they be saved as they appear or not? Here's a cool one, touch and hold the shutter button. You want that to take burst photos or record video. I'm a big fan of burst shots, in particular, trying to like capture lightning and things like that. You're gonna want that burst mode. You can even change the default focal length. When you first open up that camera, where do you want it to be? At 1x, 1.1, 1.4? That is pretty cool to see as well. Shooting methods, how about this one? Tap to capture. You can just tap anywhere on the screen to capture instead of tapping to focus, or you can also use the show palm to take a selfie. It should trigger your timer whenever you show it that. Audio modes. I wish that I had more control over this. You either have standard or smart, but smart appears to also be sort of a noise reduction mode as well as an audio zoom mode, which I do not like. So I'm gonna leave this on standard for now. Again, I wish that this was split out into two different things. Volume button action, shutter, zoom, or volume. I like the idea of potentially using it for zoom. So what this means is, if I'm here taking a picture and I hit the volume up, I'm actually going to be stepping in my zoom instead of taking the photo. I think I like that. Sticking with the camera just a little bit longer, maybe you want to take a selfie, but you don't want to use the selfie camera. Well, what you can do is you can open the thing up, and then you should see these buttons up here. One is dual preview, and the other one just switches to the cover display. So if I do dual preview, what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to see the picture being taken here and back there. If I go with this option, I can flip it around, and then I can just take the picture like that. Another cool, almost Surface Duo-esque option is this button, which will allow you to take a picture and then see the shot just taken over here. That's quite nice. And we do also have the ability to set the camera down and open it up sort of like this in this flex mode. We'll talk a bit more about flex mode later, but this will allow you to use it as its own sort of tripod. Another camera that I don't think is getting talked about a whole lot is the automatic macro mode. If I bring something up quite close, you'll see it switches to a macro focus. I can get in very, very tight. Maybe you want to turn that off. You can click that button and it'll switch back to the standard lens. We also do have a pro mode. Personally, I think macro modes are quite cool, but I actually like using pro mode to get my macro shots. Let me show you what I mean. What I like to do is zoom in by 2x. Let's bring in Charmander here. And then let's click on autofocus. We should be able to actually change the focus. Now I wish that this had focus peaking, which is a thing that highlights what's in focus. It doesn't seem to have anything quite like that. So you kind of have to see for yourself. And once you think it's in focus, snap your picture. Now, why would you want to use that over using the built-in macro lens? Let's get in really close and let it switch. And I can take this picture like that as well. But if we open it up and look at the results, this photo versus this photo, I think there's an obvious difference in the quality. And I just realized that I lied. If you're in pro mode, click right here, turn on focus peaking. Oh my goodness, we've got what we wanted. So now if we go back to focus and we dial this in, you'll see that orange that's being highlighted? That's going to be telling me exactly what is in focus. Now, unfortunately, I'm focusing on something that is orange. Let's move that out of the way and we'll use this pocket knife instead. You see how things are being highlighted in orange? That's telling us what is in focus. Now we can take that picture and be quite confident that we're going to be in focus. One tip that has more to do with your charger than the phone itself is that, as simple as it may sound, you want to use the charger that came with your device. If you're like me and you have these gallium nitride charging bricks all over the house that do 100 watts or higher of charging, you may think, great, I'll just use that and I won't worry about having to use this brick with this relatively short cable. I want to say this is less than a 3-foot cable. Well, unfortunately, with my gallium nitride charging bricks, I'm not getting the full 67 watts of charging that this thing is. There's something proprietary going on. Use the charger it came with if you want to charge super fast. In certain applications like YouTube, you do have access to something called flex mode, which will allow you to bend the device like this and sort of get this different appearance. We have your controls for the video down below. Now, I will say this does not work particularly well with this device because, as you can see, it kind of wants to just rock back and forth. And the way that the hinge is, it's not really stable. It's not really going to stay in any position other than this. Once you go back much further than this, it's going to try to snap itself open. And the camera bump is so big that it winds up being quite wobbly. So flex mode is there for some apps that support it, but it's not great. And unfortunately, if you wanted to use tint mode, which is where you take a foldable like this and you open it up about this far and set it down and watch content on the cover display, you can't really do that here because as soon as it begins to open even a little bit, it's going to switch to that inner display. I'm not actually sure where this one would be, so we're just going to click up here in the search. We're going to just look for the language settings. And you see Gboard should pop up there. That is the default keyboard for this thing. And there's a couple of changes I would definitely want to make here. The first one is under text correction. Let's get rid of block offensive words. We all know how annoying it is to be trying to say your swear word of choice and it corrects it to duck or something like that. Let's turn that off. If we go back and go into voice typing, turn on faster voice typing. It's basically going to download the voice typing stuff. Instead of having to send it to the cloud to have it changed from speech to text, it's going to do it on device now and should be much faster and more accurate. And then let's come down and click on Clipboard and let's turn on Save Recent Screenshots in Clipboard. What that's going to do is it's going to make it so when you take a screenshot, you can just go straight into a text messaging or whatever it might be, and it's there in your clipboard. You don't have to go find the file, find that photo. You can just paste it in. So guys, how's that for an exhaustive list of things to try, settings to change for your brand new OnePlus Open? If you enjoyed this video, you found it helpful, consider hitting that like button before you go. Maybe subscribe so you don't miss out on more content just like this. Tons more stuff like this for the OnePlus Open coming very, very soon, guys. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.